I never thought my own sister would steal my wedding dress and my fiancé on what was supposed to be my wedding day. Hi everyone, my name is Emily Clark, and I'm 29 years old. Before I continue with this absolutely insane story, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe to join us for more unbelievable stories like this one. Subscribe if you believe that family should never betray family. Only those who think betrayal is acceptable would refuse to hit that button. Because what my sister Kate did to me, what she said when I found her in my wedding dress, standing next to my fiancé, it destroyed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family. I was standing there in the church doorway, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst right out of my chest. The woman I trusted with my deepest secrets, the person who was supposed to be my maid of honor, was wearing the dress I'd spent months picking out. The dress that was supposed to make me feel like a princess on the most important day of my life. But when she turned around and saw me standing there, frozen in shock, she didn't look guilty. She didn't apologize. Instead, she smiled. That cold, calculated smile that I'd never seen before but would haunt my dreams for months afterward. And then she said something that would change both of our lives forever. Let me paint you a picture of who I was before this nightmare began. I'm a marketing manager at a tech company in Chicago. I've always been the responsible one, the planner, the sister who kept things together. I genuinely believed I was living a fairy tale. Now let me tell you about the two people who destroyed that fairy tale. First, there's Kate, my 25-year-old sister. Beautiful, outgoing, and absolutely magnetic. She's always been the center of attention wherever we go. Growing up in her shadow wasn't easy, but I loved her unconditionally. She was my maid of honor, my best friend, my sister. Then there's Jason, my fiancé of 8 months. Charming, funny, the kind of man who could make everyone in a room laugh within minutes. We met 3 years ago at a party, and he swept me off my feet with his attention and kindness. The proposal was perfect, lakeside, romantic, everything I dreamed of. But here's what I missed, and maybe you'll catch the red flags I ignored. Friends and family kept making little comments about Jason. He seems too good to be true, they'd whisper. Are you sure about him? And Kate had started acting strange around my wedding planning, taking over decisions, telling me what I should wear, who to invite, what colors to choose. Little controlling behaviors I brushed off as her wanting to help. I thought I had the perfect relationship with both of them. I was so wrong. Let me take you back to 3 months before my wedding day. Everything seemed perfect on the surface. I was busy with work, excelling at my job, getting promotions. Jason and I had just signed a lease on a beautiful apartment together. We were planning our future, talking about kids, dream vacations, where we'd retire. I had invested everything into this relationship, not just emotionally, but financially too. We combined our savings for the wedding. $35,000 of my own money went into deposits for the venue, catering, photography, everything. I'd already sent out 150 invitations to friends, family, and colleagues. My entire identity was wrapped up in becoming Mrs. Emily Mitchell. But looking back now, the signs were everywhere. Jason started working late more often. He'd get texts at odd hours and quickly put his phone face down. When I'd ask who was messaging, he'd say just work stuff, or the guy's planning my bachelor party. Kate became increasingly involved in every wedding detail. She insisted on approving my dress choice, demanded to see the guest list, even wanted input on our honeymoon destination. When I tried to make decisions on my own, she'd pout or find ways to make me feel guilty. I just want your day to be perfect, she'd say. The strangest thing was how Kate and Jason started spending time together, planning surprises for me. They'd have coffee meetings to discuss wedding details, they said. Kate would stay late at our apartment, supposedly helping with decorations, while I was at work. Jason would drive her home afterward, sometimes not returning until very late. I ignored every single red flag because I was so happy. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had it all. A successful career, a loving relationship, and a sister who seemed to care deeply about my happiness. The wedding was just 2 weeks away. I was about to marry my soulmate, with my best friend by my side as maid of honor. I had no idea that both of them were about to shatter my world in the most humiliating way possible. 2 weeks before my wedding, Kate called me with excitement in her voice. "Emily, you have to meet me at Bridal Dreams Boutique downtown. I found something incredible that will make your wedding day even more special." She sounded so genuine, so excited for me. How could I say no to my sister? I rushed over during my lunch break, my heart racing with curiosity. What surprise had Kate found? Maybe accessories for my dress? Special jewelry? I walked into that boutique with such joy, such trust. And there she was, my sister Kate, standing in the middle of the store, wearing my wedding dress, the exact dress I had chosen, tried on, and fallen in love with months ago. But she wasn't alone. Jason was standing right beside her, my fiancé, in a tuxedo, looking at Kate like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. The same look he used to give me. I stood there frozen, my mind trying to process what I was seeing. This had to be some kind of joke, right? Some elaborate prank or surprise I didn't understand. Then Kate turned to me, and I'll never forget the look on her face. It wasn't guilt or shame. It was satisfaction. Pure, cold satisfaction. "Emily," she said, smoothing down my dress with her hands. "Jason asked me to be his bride instead." Those words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. The room started spinning. Jason asked her to be his bride. Not me. Her. "I'm sorry, Em," Kate continued, but there was no sorry in her voice. "He chose me. We're in love, and we're getting married next weekend. We've already changed all the venue details to our names." I looked at Jason, waiting for him to say this was all some sick joke. Instead, he couldn't even meet my eyes. "Emily, we didn't mean for it to happen this way. But Kate and we have something special. Something I never felt with you." "Don't worry," Kate said, twirling in my dress. "You can still come to the wedding if you want. Maybe as a guest. I know how much you love weddings." I stood there in that bridal shop, watching my sister and my former fiancé, looking at each other with love that was supposed to be mine. They had stolen my dress, my venue, my date, my future. Everything I had worked for, planned for, dreamed of. But what happened next? What I discovered when I got home that day, that's when I realized this betrayal went so much deeper than I could have ever imagined. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in that moment? Would you have screamed, cried, walked away? Because what I did, well, let's just say their perfect little wedding was about to become their worst nightmare. I drove home in complete shock. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. When I walked into our apartment, I noticed things I had somehow missed before. Kate's earrings on the nightstand, a second coffee cup in the sink, her favorite shampoo in our shower. They had been carrying on their affair in my own home. In my bed, while I was at work, building the life I thought we were going to share together. I collapsed on the couch and cried harder than I've ever cried in my life. Not just tears of sadness, but tears of rage, humiliation, and complete betrayal. My sister, the person I trusted most in the world, had been sleeping with my fiancé behind my back for who knows how long. But the emotional pain was just the beginning. I started making phone calls, trying to understand the full scope of their betrayal. The wedding venue. Kate had already called and changed everything to her name using forged documents. The catering, the flowers, the photography. She had convinced all our vendors that there had been a family emergency and that she was now handling all the arrangements. My $35,000 in deposits, gone. Kate somehow had access to the joint account Jason and I had set up for wedding expenses. She had transferred every penny to a new account with just her and Jason's names on it. Then came the phone calls from confused family members and friends. Kate had been calling everyone on our guest list, telling them that Jason and I had mutually decided to call off the engagement and that she and Jason had found love and would be getting married instead. She painted me as the understanding sister who was so happy for their love. She told people I had given them my blessing and that I wanted everyone to celebrate their new relationship. My own parents called me, confused but somehow already taking Kate's side. "Honey," my mother said. Kate explained everything. "We're so proud of how mature you're being about this. These things happen, and it's beautiful that you can support your sister's happiness." I tried to explain the truth, but Kate had gotten to everyone first with her version of events. I was painted as either the supportive sister who graciously stepped aside, or the bitter ex-fiancé who couldn't accept that true love had prevailed. The humiliation followed me to work. Jason and I had mutual friends at my company, people who had been invited to our wedding. Suddenly, I was the object of office gossip and pity. Some people avoided me entirely, not knowing what to say. Others offered sympathy that felt more like judgment. I couldn't focus on anything. My productivity plummeted. I was making mistakes on important projects. My boss pulled me aside and suggested I take some personal time to get my head together. Within a week, I had lost my fiancé, my sister, my wedding, my money, my home. Jason kept the apartment, and was on the verge of losing my job. I was staying in a cheap motel, eating takeout, and spending my days crying or staring at the ceiling in complete disbelief. I felt completely powerless. They had won. They had taken everything from me and somehow made themselves look like the victims of circumstance, star-crossed lovers who couldn't help falling for each other. But sometimes, when you think you've lost everything, that's when you find something you never knew you had. It was day 5 of staying in that dingy motel when I got an unexpected phone call. The number wasn't in my contacts, but something made me answer. "Emily, this is Margaret Chun, Jason's ex-girlfriend from college. I heard about what happened, and I think we need to talk." Margaret asked to meet me for coffee, and honestly, I was so desperate for human connection that I agreed. What she told me that day changed everything. "Emily," she said, leaning across the table, "Jason did the exact same thing to me 3 years ago. I was engaged to him, we had a wedding planned, and then suddenly he was in love with my roommate. He cleaned out our joint account and disappeared with her to Vegas." Margaret pulled out her phone and showed me Facebook posts, old photos, documents. Jason had a history. This wasn't some romantic love story with Kate, this was a pattern of behavior. He was a con artist who targeted women with savings, women planning weddings, women who trusted him with their financial and emotional security. "The girl he left me for?" Margaret continued. "He dumped her 6 months later and moved on to the next victim. I've been tracking his behavior ever since, trying to warn people, but no one ever believes me until it's too late." But Margaret had more than just stories. She had evidence. Screenshots of Jason's dating profiles from various apps, all active during our relationship. Photos of him with different women at different times, all while we were supposedly exclusive. Most importantly, she had financial records. Margaret was a forensic accountant, and she had been building a case against Jason for financial fraud. She had documentation of at least 5 other women he had scammed in similar ways over the past 6 years. "There's something else," Margaret said, pulling out printed emails. "Your sister Kate contacted Jason 8 months ago. I found their communications in his old email account that he forgot to close. She initiated the whole thing. I read those emails with growing horror and rage. Kate had found Jason on social media, seen that he was engaged to me, and deliberately seduced him. But it wasn't about love, it was about destroying me. In one email, Kate wrote, "Emily has always gotten everything handed to her. The good job, the perfect life, everyone's respect. I'm tired of being the little sister who lives in her shadow. Help me take her down a few pegs, and we can both get what we want." Jason's response was chilling. "I've done this before. We drain her savings through the wedding expenses, then disappear with the money. You get your revenge against your sister, I get a nice payday. After a few months, we can split up and no one will ever connect us." Margaret slid a thick folder across the table. "I've been building a legal case against Jason for years. I have evidence of fraud, identity theft, and financial crimes across multiple states. But I never had enough money to pursue it properly. However," she continued with a smile, "if we work together, we can destroy both of them. I have the evidence and the legal knowledge. You have the insider access and the motivation. What do you say we give them a wedding day they'll never forget?" For the first time in a week, I felt something other than despair. I felt power. Margaret wasn't just offering me revenge. She was offering me justice. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. Margaret's grin was absolutely wicked. "Well, they want to use your wedding venue, your vendors, your guest list. Let's make sure their big day becomes the day everyone discovers exactly who they really are." I felt a fire ignite in my chest that I had never experienced before. This wasn't just about getting back at Kate and Jason anymore. This was about protecting all the other women Jason would target and making sure Kate learned that actions have consequences. I looked Margaret in the eye and said, "Tell me everything." Margaret and I spent the next week planning with military precision. We had 6 days until Kate and Jason's wedding, my former wedding, and we were going to make every single day count. First, Margaret helped me document everything. We photographed the forged documents Kate had used to change the venue booking. We gathered screenshots of Jason's active dating profiles. We compiled bank records showing the fraudulent transfer of my wedding funds. But we needed more than just evidence. We needed to catch them in the act of their ongoing fraud. Margaret had a private investigator friend who owed her a favor. For 3 days, we had Jason and Kate followed. What we discovered was sickening. They weren't just planning to scam me, they were already working on their next victims. Jason was messaging multiple women on dating apps, setting up coffee dates, while Kate played the supportive sister, encouraging these women to open their hearts to love. We watched them meet with 3 different women that week alone. Each woman was successful, had savings, and was vulnerable in some way. Jason's pattern was exactly as Margaret had described. Here's where our plan got brilliant. Margaret posed as a wedding planner and called every single vendor Kate had stolen from my original wedding. She told them she was conducting quality assurance checks on behalf of the bride's family. What she actually did was plant seeds of doubt. She asked questions like, "Have you verified the payment method for this event? And has anyone confirmed the identity of the people who made these bookings?" She didn't make accusations, she just asked the right questions to make people start investigating. Remember how Kate had called all our wedding guests to explain the situation? Well, Margaret helped me call them back. But I didn't tell them the truth directly. Instead, I played the role Kate had created for me, the understanding, supportive sister. I told everyone how excited I was for Kate and Jason, and how I wanted their special day to be unforgettable. I asked if they could help me with a special surprise for the happy couple. Most people were eager to help, thinking they were participating in something sweet and supportive. What they were actually helping me with was expanding the guest list. I invited Jason's ex-girlfriends, all of them. Margaret had contact information for 7 women Jason had scammed or cheated on over the past 6 years. I reached out to each one personally. "Hi, this is Emily, Jason's former fiancé. I know this might sound strange, but Jason is getting married next weekend, and I think you deserve to know what kind of man he really is. Would you like to attend the wedding?" 6 out of 7 said yes immediately. They were hungry for closure, and Margaret's evidence packets had convinced them that Jason was a serial predator who needed to be stopped. Meanwhile, Margaret was working her magic behind the scenes. She contacted the district attorney's office and provided them with all our evidence of Jason's pattern of fraud. She also reached out to a friend at the FBI who specialized in financial crimes. The timing was perfect. They needed Jason to commit one more act of fraud to make their case airtight. Our wedding provided the perfect opportunity. 3 days before the wedding, I made a decision that was probably the hardest thing I'd ever done. I called my parents and told them everything. Not Kate's version, the truth. At first, they didn't believe me. But when I showed them Margaret's evidence, when I played them recordings of Jason's voicemails to other women, when I showed them the bank records proving the theft of my money, they were devastated. My mother cried for 2 hours straight. "How could Kate do this to you?" she kept asking. "How could we have been so blind?" My father was furious. "That little girl has been manipulating this family for years," he said. "Always playing victim, always making excuses. But this is unforgivable." 2 days before the wedding, Margaret and I made our final preparations. We had everything in place. The evidence, the witnesses, the authorities, and most importantly, the element of complete surprise. Kate and Jason had no idea what was coming. They were busy with their final wedding preparations, probably congratulating themselves on their perfect crime. Jason was still messaging other women, still setting up future targets. Kate was posting on social media about her fairy tale romance and how everything happens for a reason. The night before their wedding, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was nervous, but because I was excited. Tomorrow, justice would finally be served. Tomorrow, everyone would see Kate and Jason for who they really were. Margaret called me around midnight. "Everything is in place," she said. "Are you ready for this?" "I've been ready since the day I found them in that bridal shop," I replied. I spent the morning of their wedding day getting ready. Not for a celebration, but for the most important performance of my life. I had to play the supportive sister until the perfect moment. I had to smile and congratulate them and act like everything was normal. Because the bigger their moment of triumph felt, the more devastating their fall would be. At 2 p.m., I walked into that venue, my venue, wearing a smile and carrying a wedding gift. Kate and Jason greeted me with surprised happiness, probably thinking they had won completely. "Emily," Kate said, hugging me. "I'm so glad you came. This means everything to me." I hugged her back and said, "I wouldn't miss it for the world, Kate. This day is going to be absolutely unforgettable." If only she knew how right she was. What Margaret and I had planned for their wedding day, it was going to be absolutely devastating. But first, we had some preparation to do. Because when you're going to destroy someone's life, you better make sure you do it right. Before I continue, I want to know, do you think Jason and Kate deserved what was coming to them? Or should I have just walked away and let them have their happiness? Let me know in the comments, because trust me, after you hear what we did to them, you might change your mind. The wedding ceremony was set to begin at 4 p.m. By 3:30, the venue was filled with guests, but not the guests Kate and Jason were expecting. I watched from the back of the church as Jason's 6 ex-girlfriends filed in, each one carrying a folder of evidence Margaret had prepared. They sat scattered throughout the audience, looking like normal wedding guests. My parents were there, their faces stone cold as they watched Kate in my stolen dress, preparing to marry my stolen fiancé. The authorities were positioned discreetly outside, waiting for Margaret's signal. Kate looked radiant, completely unaware that her perfect day was about to become her worst nightmare. Jason looked nervous, but I think he just had normal groom jitters. Neither of them noticed anything unusual. The officiant began the ceremony with the traditional opening. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Kate Clark and Jason Mitchell in holy matrimony." Kate was beaming. Jason was smiling. They looked so happy, so triumphant. They thought they had won everything. The officiant continued, "If anyone here has reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace." Usually, this moment passes in silence. Not today. Margaret stood up from her seat in the middle of the church. "Actually," she said in a clear, carrying voice, "I do have something to say." Kate's face went white. Jason looked confused, then panicked as he recognized Margaret from his past. The entire congregation turned to stare at this woman who had just interrupted their wedding. "My name is Margaret Chun," she announced, "and I'm here to inform everyone that the groom, Jason Mitchell, is currently under investigation for financial fraud, identity theft, and emotional manipulation across multiple states." Margaret pulled out a thick folder. "Jason has a pattern of targeting engaged women, gaining access to their wedding funds, and then disappearing with their money. The woman he's marrying today, Kate Clark, is not a victim of this scheme. She's his accomplice." The church erupted in shocked whispers. Kate started to protest. "This is insane. This woman is clearly mentally unstable. Security." But Margaret wasn't finished. "I have bank records, email communications, and testimony from multiple victims, including Kate's own sister, Emily, whose wedding funds were stolen to pay for this very ceremony." One by one, Jason's ex-girlfriends stood up throughout the church. "Sarah from Denver, he stole $15,000 from me. Jessica from Portland, he left me at the altar after emptying our joint account. Amanda from Phoenix, he used my credit cards to fund his escape with another woman." By the time the 6th woman had spoken, the entire congregation was in chaos. Jason was trying to back away from the altar, but there was nowhere to go. Kate finally snapped. "This is all Emily's fault," she screamed, pointing at me. "She's just jealous because Jason chose me. She can't stand that for once in her life. I got something she wanted." I stood up calmly from my seat. "Actually, Kate, I need to thank you. You helped me discover exactly who Jason really is before I made the biggest mistake of my life." I pulled out my own folder, copies of all the evidence Margaret and I had gathered. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to know that my sister Kate initiated this entire scheme. She contacted Jason specifically because she was jealous of my life and wanted to destroy me." I began reading from Kate's own emails. "Emily has always gotten everything handed to her. I'm tired of being the little sister who lives in her shadow. Help me take her down a few pegs." My mother stood up from her seat, tears streaming down her face. Kate, how could you do this to your own sister? How could you do this to our family? My father's voice was ice cold. You're no daughter of mine. Pack your things and get out of our house. You're dead to this family. Jason tried to run. He literally hitched up his tuxedo pants and tried to sprint down the aisle toward the exit. But Margaret had planned for this too. FBI, came the shout from the back of the church. Jason Mitchell, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and financial crimes across state lines. Federal agents swarmed into the church. Jason was tackled in his wedding tuxedo right there on the red carpet, handcuffed while still wearing his boutonniere. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Kate was screaming, still in my wedding dress, as the reality of her situation hit her. This isn't fair. Emily ruined everything. This was supposed to be my day. But we weren't done. Margaret had coordinated with every single vendor. As the chaos continued inside the church, moving trucks were already at the reception venue, repossessing every item Kate had fraudulently obtained. The flowers, the cake, the decorations, the catering, everything was being returned to the original vendors who had been victims of Kate's identity theft. The reception hall was stripped bare within an hour. Within 48 hours, every penny of my stolen wedding funds was frozen in federal accounts pending the criminal investigation. Kate's credit cards were frozen. Jason's bank accounts were seized. Not only did I get my money back, but the federal investigation uncovered assets Jason had hidden from previous scams. I actually ended up with more money than I'd originally lost. But the financial consequences were nothing compared to the social destruction. Video of the wedding disaster went viral on social media within hours. Someone had live-streamed the entire confrontation, and it was shared thousands of times. Kate became an internet meme, Sister Stealer Kate, and her life was effectively over in our community. Every employer, every dating prospect, every potential friend could Google her name and find the story. Kate tried to salvage something from the wreckage. She called me 3 days later, sobbing, begging me to work something out as sisters. Emily, please, she cried. Can't we put this behind us? Families should stick together. I let her finish her pathetic plea, then said calmly, Kate, you stopped being my sister the day you stole my fiancé. You stopped being family the day you stole my money. And you stopped being worth my time the day you decided my happiness was less important than your jealousy. Then I hung up. I haven't spoken to her since. So what happened next? Well, justice was served in ways I never could have imagined. Jason was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for financial fraud. The investigation Margaret had been building for years finally had enough evidence to convict him on multiple counts across several states. He's currently serving his sentence and will have to pay restitution to all his victims, including me. Kate was charged as an accessory to fraud and identity theft. She plea bargained down to 2 years probation and community service, but her life was effectively destroyed anyway. She lost her job when the story went public. She had to move 3 states away to escape the shame. Last I heard, she was working at a gas station in rural Montana, completely cut off from our family and everyone we used to know. My relationship with my parents actually became stronger than ever. They were devastated by Kate's betrayal, but it helped them understand some of the dynamics in our family that they had missed for years. My mother said to me, I realize now that we enabled Kate's selfishness by always making excuses for her behavior. We failed you as parents by not seeing how she treated you. The healing process wasn't easy, but we're closer now than we've ever been. As for me, this experience taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. 4 years, I had been the good sister, the one who kept the peace, who avoided confrontation, who let Kate have her way to maintain family harmony. But sometimes, being strong means fighting back. Sometimes, being kind means refusing to enable someone's destructive behavior. Sometimes, love means setting boundaries and enforcing consequences. Here's the ironic twist that Kate never could have predicted. By destroying my relationship with Jason, she actually saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Through Margaret's investigation, we discovered that Jason had been planning to disappear with my money even if Kate hadn't been involved. I would have married him, combined all our finances, and within 6 months, he would have cleaned out everything and vanished. Kate thought she was destroying my happiness, but she actually protected me from a predator who would have ruined my life far more completely than she ever could. And speaking of unexpected blessings, Margaret and I became incredibly close friends through this whole ordeal. She introduced me to her brother David, who's a lawyer specializing in victim advocacy. David and I have been dating for 8 months now, and I can honestly say I've never been happier. He's nothing like Jason. He's genuine, honest, and he actually makes me laugh without trying to manipulate or charm me. We're taking things slow, building a real foundation of trust and respect. And you know what? It feels infinitely better than the fairy tale fantasy I thought I had with Jason. Margaret used our case to launch a non-profit organization helping women who've been victims of romantic financial fraud. She's helped recover over $200,000 for victims and has gotten 3 other serial fraudsters convicted. She says our wedding day takedown was the most satisfying moment of her legal career. We still laugh about Kate's face when she realized her perfect revenge had backfired so spectacularly. This whole experience taught me some important lessons I want to share with all of you watching. First, trust your instincts. If people are warning you about someone, don't ignore those red flags just because you're happy. Love shouldn't require you to ignore your intelligence. Second, family loyalty has limits. Just because someone shares your DNA doesn't mean they have the right to destroy your life without consequences. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's toxic behavior. Third, revenge isn't always about getting even. Sometimes it's about protecting other people from being hurt the same way you were. Kate spent years resenting me for having a perfect life that she thought came easily to me. But the truth is, everything good in my life came from hard work, treating people with respect, and making ethical choices. She could have had the same things if she had put in the effort instead of trying to steal mine. Instead, she lost everything, including a sister who would have supported her through anything if she had just been honest. I sleep peacefully every night, knowing that justice was served and that Kate and Jason can't hurt anyone else the way they hurt me. I have no regrets about what I did to them. They made their choices, and they faced the consequences. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad about ruining Kate's life. But Kate ruined her own life the moment she decided that her jealousy was more important than her family. I just made sure everyone else could see who she really was. To anyone watching this who might be going through something similar, whether it's a cheating partner, a toxic family member, or anyone who thinks they can walk all over you without consequences, remember this. You have more power than you think. You have more strength than you know. And you deserve people in your life who build you up instead of tearing you down. Don't let anyone convince you that you have to accept betrayal in the name of keeping the peace or family loyalty. Sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is remove toxic people from your life completely. My wedding day was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the day I learned who my real family was, who my real friends were, and who I really was when pushed to my absolute limit. Kate wanted to prove that she was better than me, that she deserved my life more than I did. Instead, she proved that character matters more than beauty, that integrity matters more than charm, and that the people who truly love you will stand by you when everything falls apart. And you know what the best part is? I never had to lower myself to Kate's level to get my revenge. I didn't have to lie, cheat, steal, or manipulate anyone. I just had to tell the truth and let justice run its course. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's living well and letting toxic people destroy themselves with their own choices. So Kate, if you're watching this somewhere in rural Montana, I want you to know I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger was only hurting me. I hope you learned something from all of this. I hope you get the help you need to deal with your jealousy and selfishness. And I hope you never hurt anyone else the way you hurt me. But mostly, I just hope you stay far away from my family and my life. Because we're all doing just fine without you. Alright everyone, that's my story. Let me know in the comments, do you think Kate and Jason got what they deserved? Have you ever had to cut a toxic family member out of your life? And most importantly, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Thank you for watching. Thank you for all your support. And remember, never let anyone convince you that you have to accept betrayal with a smile. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is fight back. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories, and I'll see you in the next video.